I grew up in a place called Corona, California, which is in Riverside County, and in the 2000 census, it had a population of 124,966 people. Corona is a place that was built on the orange industry in Southern California, and Corona was originally Southern Riverside. Riverside was the heart of the orange industry. The citrus industry was huge in the late 19th century. By 1895, Riverside was the wealthiest city in the United States when measured by income per capita. Navel seedless oranges were a mutation from a Brazilian monastery sent to women's suffrage activist Eliza Tibbets. The mutation grew particularly well in the Southern California climate. There's a 137-year-old orange tree that she planted that's still alive and bearing fruit. It's now a historical monument in downtown Riverside. Oranges brought so much wealth to Riverside that this period in history was nicknamed the Second Gold Rush. Oranges also brought higher education to Riverside. The University of Riverside, California was originally the Citrus Experimentation Station, a place where farmers could learn how to breed and cultivate the mutation that is navel oranges. Being naturally seedless, they can't reproduce on their own and are cloned in a process I don't really understand. The cultivation of oranges is still a billion-dollar industry in California. I didn't grow up near orange orchards. I and no one else I knew was a farmer. By the time I grew up, much of the orange industry had moved up north as real estate in Riverside County became more valuable than the fruit. I had never thought about this correlation before, but I hate oranges, and I really don't understand why. I have an almost irrational disgust for the things. But it kind of makes sense to me when I think about it, because I think a lot of people have this relationship with their hometown where you have a lot of love for it, but at the same time you despise it in a way that an outsider could never understand. The Monster Energy company holds its headquarters in Corona, California, and that's a pretty good indication of what the culture is like down there. When I was growing up, I never realized how big Riverside is, 81.4 square miles, and it consists of 28 neighborhoods. It's the 12th largest city in California and the 59th largest in America. It's crazy because to the people who grew up there, it's the sticks. People from San Diego and Los Angeles and even Orange County consider Riverside a place where retirees and failed actors go to die. As far as the things I didn't like about Corona, the worst was the traffic and the weather. As you could see here, in any month out of the year, it could be 100 degrees, and it's just horrible. Being outside for an extended period of time could be a death sentence. What I liked about Corona was the location. You got Los Angeles and Orange County to the north, and then you have San Diego to the south. But all around, you're surrounded by, fairly large cities. To the north, we had Norco. That's 27,063 people. And that was kind of the rustic place where rich people with horses live. That town actually doesn't have sidewalks. They have dirt pathways and people ride their horses to the bank. To the south is Lake Elsinore. That's where I went to high school. Riverside is to the northeast, like I said, 300,000 people. And then directly to the west is Orange County. Anaheim, 336,000 people. So there's just an endless sea of faces. And so no matter what kind of social faux pas or embarrassments, no matter what failed relationship you've had, there's an infinite amount of new people to meet every single day. And it's actually very rare that you run into anyone you know. By far, my favorite place to go in Corona, California when I was growing up was the Showcase Theater. This was a rock club that was across the street from the Corona Public Library, where we'd go to see bands every week. Sometimes it'd be bigger bands. Bands would come all the way from Europe to perform there, mostly metal and punk groups. No Doubt used to perform there, in Blink-182, a lot of the Southern California bands that later would go on to get very rich and famous. It was just an awesome place, and it had so many good times there. Unfortunately, it closed in 2008. The neighborhood where I grew up was called Horse Thief Canyon Ranch, and these places are kind of common in Southern California. It's sort of a planned community where all the houses are built off of models, and one thing that was kind of weird about growing up there is you start to notice after a little while that there's only about 5 or 6 different models that the houses are built on, so you'll go into your friend's house and it has the exact same layout as yours. I was pretty surprised when I came to Dillon and saw the great variety of the different houses here. That's pretty cool, growing up in such a cookie-cutter place. On the one hand, I did really like growing up in Horse Thief Canyon because it was very safe, just far away from anyone causing trouble in the city. But at the same time, it was about 15 miles away from everything, and being a kid without a driver's license, we'd spend a lot of days scrounging through our buddies' fridges looking for food because there was nowhere to buy anything. Nowhere nearby, at least. We used to hang out at that pool a lot and play volleyball over there. That was my house there on a street called Hitching Rail Court. It was in a little cul-de-sac. Okay, so that's where I grew up, Corona, California. Although I feel like most people who grew up in this area, you don't really feel like you grow up in one town. On an average day, most of us would travel between 3 to 4 different cities, visiting friends, going shopping, going to work. And so it feels more like I grew up in Riverside County. Usually, when people ask, I just say I'm from Riverside. And a lot of times when I tell people that, I get a nice pat on the back and a concerned look.